nominating committee enough for picking my name. When you're labeled as a founder, you can think of probably 50 volunteers that did a lot more work than you did. I'm pleased to join my father, who was a toiler in the basketball team and was appointed for being on the Canadian Championship teams of 26 and 27. He was the tallest player on the team, 6'1". Or for you modern Canadians, 185 centimeters. I had a great speech, but my daughters have censored me badly. And I'm joined tonight by my 7 children and 9 of my 18 grandchildren, and I'm not even Catholic. I was an invasive cardiologist, meant I stuck catheters into babies and children's hearts, and I needed an occupation that was a little more relaxing, and also it was something that allowed some research. And I chose exercise and sports, and I've never looked back. First, my friend Max Averin, who's Hall of Fame, was in charge of our Medical Association Sports Medicine Committee, and I knew Max well from med school, so I joined him in this idea to do something for high school football. We put on a training program at the Red River Community College with the help of the sports trainers, and to see what they were doing, I started attending high school football 2 afternoons a week and helping out the new trainers. After 3 or 4 years of doing this, the Bombers invited me to join their staff, and I'm not allowed to tell any real big Bomber stories, but I had a great time for a number of years with them. The Bombers practiced at the Canada Packers because they didn't want to screw up the turf at the stadium, and so I used to go out there 2 afternoons a week. The other docs on the Bombers then were about 55 to 65 years, and I was 32 or 3, so I was kind of expendable. Out there I'd write a few prescriptions, inject a few joints, but mainly I'd really learn about sports medicine from Gord Mackey and from Chuck Badcock. The interesting thing is the odd time I couldn't make it out there, so I'd pick a resident from the hospital to go out. And after doing this for 2 or 3 years, the resident I picked was Wayne Hildahl. And of course, Wayne went on to really establish sports medicine in this province with the Pan Am Sports Center. I like to think I gave him a little nudge, but he would have probably rose to fame anyway. I was very keen on the River Heights Community Club and coached several sports there and raised money for the indoor rink we built there. And then across the street was a Blanche McCallum, who had been a skater, and her daughter was a good skater at Sargent Park. And my kids started getting involved with her Learn to Skate program, and after 2 or 3 years we decided we had about 80 or 90 kids, we'd better form a speed skating club, and we became the first indoor speed skating club in Canada, and I ended up being president. The next year the Manitoba Association president retired, and I ended up with that job. I found it was a lot easier than standing outside in the cold at 30 below. It was easier to giving out medals at the end of the meet. One of the things you can't remember is we used to have a silver skates meet on New Year's, and you get there at 1 in the afternoon with a terrible hangover, and you have to stand outside at 20 below, 30 below for 4 hours with a stopwatch. And there's nothing, no medicine will cure a hangover quicker than that, other than going into the Zamboni room and having a snack of Nick Ray's home brew. I'm supposed to leave these other little stories out of here. I had a great time from speed skating. You just can't imagine the volunteer effort to keep a small sport like that going. And I hate to sort of say any names, but Jerry McCullough with the St. James Club and Don McCannell, Doreen Botterell's father, they were the people to go to for information. They just ran that sport and put their whole lives into it. At the 76 Olympics, I had the honor of being a team physician, one of 3 physicians. One of the reasons we made it for a low sport like speed skating, made a doctor there, was hockey unfortunately didn't take part because they wouldn't accept our pros that wanted to reinstate. My main interest in exercise turned out to be exercise physiology. And I had a great career in exercise physiology. I became one of the leaders in Canada on the subject and had some tremendous volunteers and workers. One of the things I had an exercise lab in the Children's Hospital, and one of my slaves was here tonight we accomplished a lot. We made some new inroads in the diagnosis of heart disease by the electrocardiogram and other means. And I ended up traveling all over the world. To be successful as a scientist, you have to do something quirky and often unimportant. And the Monark bicycle was the standard sort of test ergometer in those days. And the Swedes that invented it had a table, and they had forgotten to include that there's a resistance in the chain drive. And I ended up getting a university professor to make me a bicycle calibrator. And suddenly, being a nitpicker, I was sort of considered a world authority, which I really wasn't. Anyway, I ended up joining a European pediatric work physiology group. I traveled all over the world. I gave papers at the American College of Sports Medicine. We ended up at the Pan Am Games, establishing the Canadian Association of Sports Sciences. You can't really imagine the change in the attitude to sport after Jim Daly's Pan Am Games. It no longer was just football and hockey, but all of the other sports were recognized and respected. The other time that happened was when John Robertson reinvented the Manitoba Marathon. And I was the medical director for his 2. I guess 6 of my 7 kids were still living at home, and they all ran in the marathon. One was 9 years old, and he was so darn mad at his mother for picking him up at mile 18 that he became a marathoner. And he's done the Boston and several other marathons around the world. The one good thing about my children is that they've all made sports an important part of their work, their life, and the same with the grandchildren. There's nothing better, even if it's to being involved in an exercise activity, even if it's just fitness. I should really end now. I'm just so grateful for the honor. I'm so grateful for getting my kids from all parts of the world here tonight. And thank you very much.